And welcome to everybody. My name is Cassie Sofing. I'm with the GLOBE Mission Mosquito team, and I'm joined today by Liz Burke and Dorian Janney, and we welcome you to our monthly webinar. Today we have a few things that we'll talk about before we get to our featured presentation. We have a mosquito data update, an opportunity for a NASA eclipse, and then we'll jump right into our larva hunters guide training today. I have a little bit of stats, and everybody is welcome to go to the geospatial.strategies.org website to find how you can also see these mosquito observations. But cumulative in the last 4.5 years, we've got 37,377 total observations and eliminated over 22,000 potential breeding habitats. The chart at the bottom is by year and by month. So you can see in the Northern Hemisphere, we have a little bit more activity during the summer months. And that's where we're getting a lot of our observations. And since January 2022, our mosquito observations have really upticked. We have over 1,800 mosquito observations with 644 larvae photographs. And as you know, those photographs are being used by researchers, specifically in the University of South Florida, to create an AI to work on potential maps for mosquito vectors using the AI. Can you raise your hand? How many people know about NASA eclipse? A few people? That's great. I'd like to bring to the forefront and to promote that they are looking for student teams for production to make a NASA spotlight. And basically, the students would confront a science misconception, gathering your own evidence through observations and explorations, capture your questions and findings through a video, which is about 90 seconds long, and then share the video challenge with others to make their own observations. We're looking at specifically a land cover design challenge, and we're looking for misconception number 2, even though it looks like misconception number 1 is highlighted. The land cover of an area doesn't matter, and we're looking for land cover can change slowly or quickly. And so if you're interested in doing that, the NASA Eclipse website, which I have the link to at the bottom, has carefully mapped out how easy it would be for your students to get started with this. And so there's a challenge, and we're looking at misconception number 2, the land cover of an area doesn't matter. And then how you would go about doing that. There's several different resources that are available that have been identified that you could use. And how you would do that in a demonstration, an activity, or a simulation, or even some data analysis, and then providing the links. The criteria for it is it's a component. You'll have the main topics. You'll engage in the misconception using a real-world situation, for example, creating a brief demonstration, something for the viewers to try to prove it to themselves, and then providing your sources. As I mentioned, there's some research claims, some information that is available for research then. And then here's the design statement. You'll identify the problem, what you already know. It's different. Put it together. The team is available to help. And then you actually would submit your video. They are taking your work between December 9th is the first deadline and March 10th. So your student work would be submitted, it'll get reviewed, suggestions, and then back to the students to make their final edits, and then it would become published. So we're hoping that there will be some interest from people, and if you'd like to share the resource, that would be grand. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat as we go through our topic today. And our topic today is the Mission Mosquito Larva Hunter's Guide. I'm going to change my share. And we have the Mission Mosquito Larva Hunter's Guide.
Welcome, mosquito larva hunters. Right now, somewhere in the world, a mosquito is biting a human. You can observe that phenomenon probably right there on your own arm. I'm sure everyone on this webinar has had that experience. But your task in the next hour or so is to become familiar with the Mission Mosquito Larva Hunter's Guide. I, Liz Burke, along with my co-larva hunter, Cassie Sofing, and with Dorian Janney along with us, will introduce you to both the content and the presentation features of this important document. It is important right now because somewhere in the world, a mosquito is biting a human. And why should you care about that? Because they want your blood and because they are the deadliest organism on this planet. We need you to be part of this team. Your attention throughout will earn you the coveted Mosquito Larvae Hunter's badge. More on that at the end of your training. So now that we have the official introduction out of the way, we can just relax. We're going to spend the next hour, and Cassie and Dorian jumping in, and I will lead you through this incredible resource that has just kind of culminated in this amazing display of educational resources. It is a slide deck presentation, and Cassie will explain a lot of that as we go along with you. But Cassie and I are going to tag team a lot as we go through. So if you have any questions at all, just please put those in the chat. And while one is speaking, the other will monitor the chat. And we will just talk as we go through and talk about the guide. Before we open up this guide, though, as you look at, this is the cover of this guide, I just wanted to bring to your attention a couple things. First of all, it plays this video when you would open it for your audience, whoever that is. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but this video will play and kind of engage your audience, just as I hope it intrigues you. And we'll get started on talking about this tool. It is intentionally driven by distinct steps leading to the identification of mosquito larvae. And the mosquito habitat mapper that it corresponds with here is driven by science observations. The goal of that is to make those scientific observations. But we decided we needed to tell the mosquito story. And so this, the Larva Hunter's Guide, capitalizes on learning that story and supporting those observations. So all we needed, it needed to be told in a format that we thought was very engaging. And so that was part of our goal. And we hope that that comes through as we go along. It is written and illustrated. It supports citizen scientists. And it also supports students. And so we tried to make it engaging for both of those audiences. And it's designed and written for anyone from about the age of 10 and up. It provides a pathway to learning the biology, as you will see in just a minute, the biology and the behaviors of mosquitoes. And it builds confidence in using the app, which is another incredible thing about this resource. The time, we understand that everybody is busy. And so in order to honor that time and your time, we tried to include everything in here that you would need. We are trying to make it so you don't have to go elsewhere to find a resource. You don't have to go elsewhere to get information. You don't have to go elsewhere to get answers. We incorporated all of that in this guide for you. So we tried to honor your time that way. We made it multi-purpose, that it's designed for all participants of any level, in any neighborhood, anywhere. It can be done in a classroom. We recommend it for grades 5 through 9, but it can certainly be modified higher than that, and it can be modified lower than that. I've done it in classroom with younger students, younger than 5th grade students. And while I had to make modifications, that is very true, but they were definitely very engaged with the whole thing. So that was cool. It can be done with a science club. If you do a lunch science club, an after school science club, it can be done in an informal education setting, such as a library or a museum or a wildlife refuge. It can be done as a homeschool project and learning experience. And it can be done in an after school program, such as boys and girls clubs or scouting programs. So it's multi-purpose, and so we hope that you can, as you watch it, look at it from your perspective and see how you can use it to engage the citizen scientist students that you work with. We also want to make clear before we start here and get into this that it's useful for many reasons. We wanted to also make it useful for many reasons. If, for example, you're a classroom teacher and you're doing LS 1.B, you're doing a life science NGSS, and it's talking about engaging in that animals engage in behaviors to increase their odds of reproduction. You can use the mosquito as an example of that. Or LS2A, depend on interactions with other living and non-living things. You can use this guide to this mosquitoes to illustrate that concept. You can take advantage of local phenomenon, your mosquito season. It's perfect. You can use it when you have a mosquito season. When you get reports of mosquito-borne diseases in your area and you want to take advantage of that, share that and kind of drive that with your kids, then you can get out the Larva Hunter's Guide and use that along with that. You can do it in a unit on insects when you want to maybe highlight one particular insect. You could do it if you teach about communicable diseases. And so in your disease unit, you can do it when you want to do science fair projects or a community service project with those with whom you're working. So multi-purpose. And so I hope that all of that comes through. That's a kind of a long introduction, but I wanted to make it clear. I wanted to lay it out for you where you can kind of grab onto things. But we're going to jump through and walk through. Please put anything in the chat that you wish to share or the questions that you have about it as we go along. The first thing you'll see when you open it up is the welcome to the hunters. And so it just gives you just kind of that brief introduction, basically talking about the purpose of it and getting into a little bit of the format. I guess, Cassie, if you would jump in, you could certainly introduce that part of it, the formatting of this whole resource.
Thank you, Liz. We chose to use Google Slides as a format for a few reasons. One, we know there's an awful lot of Google Classrooms around. It's a format that a teacher could have their students independently go through these by downloading this onto their laptops. Google Slides would allow you to kind of pick and choose what slides you want to hide and show for a presentation, but it's easily downloadable. You'll get a link and your badge and a certificate at the end of this webinar. But we thought also that there's an awful lot of informal educators who probably would benefit from using it on a smartboard or a large screen display. And this is just a generic format that would be usable. You can download Google Slides into a PowerPoint or a PDF file. Depending on if you needed or wanted to print out individual pages, you can do that also. And as you know from using this, that you can, I just have my regular web browser showing, but you can hide the tools at the top, and at the bottom left-hand side, you can hide the film strip so you can get a full screen if you want to also. We have a table of contents. We know that there's an awful lot of material here, so we wanted to provide you a way to get back and forth to the individual activities. All of the text here are hyperlinked to the individual pages that they're associated with. And so if you click on it, it will take you to the next page. We also have provided an answer key. And so if you see a green check mark at the bottom of a page, that page has answers. And if you've worked with your students and they've gone through this particular activity and you want to check and see how their answers are, they can self-check. Then you just click the check mark, it'll go to that page with the answers. You probably have guessed there's more than 26 pages in this particular activity. And so those are considered activity numbers, not page numbers. And so again, as you as you hover over something, you'll see it will go right to that slide for you.
Great. So this is our first hook. Threw it right at that beginning here. It's the same one I just told you about. Right now, somewhere in the world, a mosquito is biting a human. And while probably your students would already know that, we also drive home the point that it is so important to understand that and to know that and be aware of that, because mosquitoes are the world's deadliest animal. And so we found, I mean, there's graphics out all over there. We like this one in particular. It shows that mosquitoes, that the number of people killed by a mosquito per year, 725,000 people. And if that doesn't grab you or a student of yours or a fellow citizen scientist and motivate them, I probably should know a little bit more about mosquitoes then, and go out and see if I can find some, and go out and see if I can maybe get rid of some of the mosquito babies out there, then reduce that number a bit. But we thought this was pretty impactful at the beginning. So that's where we started. And then we move right into a brief introduction. So in this page, it's just giving you your mission and using this as a hunter. You're going to learn mosquito science. You're going to get some new vocabulary. You're going to make drawings and generate questions and answer questions and write down your ideas, plan some investigations, record. So we listed all of the learning tools that are embedded within this whole document. Then, of course, we went to safety. And this is a primary concern, of course, especially when you tell someone, you know, mosquitoes are pretty deadly. And then you go, ooh. So we wanted to make sure that you understood, and that whoever uses this understands, going outdoors to do mosquito work does require certain precautions, wearing long sleeve shirt, pants, and closed-toed shoes, perhaps bringing along some water resistant gloves if you're going to get into the water and start looking. And insect repellent certainly helps, and working at dawn and dusk is something you might want to avoid, etc. They're all listed there. Share those. Make sure you follow those, because safety is a big concern.
But as a reminder, mosquito larvae are not dangerous.
True. Yes. Thank you for saying that. I get caught up in but our primary work with this is with the larvae. We haven't introduced those yet, of course, in the notebook. Most people don't even know what a baby mosquito looks like. But certainly make sure to tell them that we are going to be working with a form that does not bite or spread diseases. So then we go into, of course, those of you that have an education background will know a KWL chart when you see one. We thought it was a good way to start, have them write down what they know about mosquitoes and what they wonder about mosquitoes, and leave it at that here at the beginning. And then you'll come back at the end of this. We'll have the L, the learning, what you learned from this experience. But these are always really valuable pieces of information. We encourage you to do that. But once you get that done, move right on to our second hook. And so this one says that this is a mosquito, and people would say, I don't think that's a mosquito. I've never seen a mosquito that looks like that. Well, we explain that female mosquitoes lay eggs, and this is what hatches. It's called a larva. It will soon become an adult. This form of mosquito does not fly, it does not bite, and it will not hunt for you. You must hunt for it. And hence the whole thing about going mosquito larva hunting. So it is, as Cassie pointed out in the table of contents, it's broken into sections. This is section 1. It's meeting the mosquitoes. And pardon me, at the beginning of each section, we did just a brief introduction specifically for that section. So have you ever met one? Well, probably, yes, you have. And what do you know about it? This is what most people know about mosquitoes. They have to have wings because they fly around and they buzz around you and annoy you all the time. They have to have some kind of mouth because they bite you, don't they? And they suck blood, I do know that. And then they leave you itching and they fly away again. But there's much more to the story, so much more to their story, and it's so fascinating. So we've got to start with the life cycle, and we've got to introduce them right off to the larva. So that's where we're going to go as you go on into this section. So we present, you recognize the thing on the surface, certainly. I mean, you should say, well, that's probably the adult. But then we ask, so what are those things? What is under the water? Why is this mosquito standing there? And so we have them make some scientific questions. What do you wonder about that? You look at that, and we're not telling you what those are, but what do you wonder about those things? Those are some weird looking things. On to the next page. We ask them to, so what if? Is it possible that they remind me of? And maybe even make a sketching of something you're thinking about. And so again, we use these open-ended questions, so it creates thought on their part. They have to really think and analyze those things. And then we do a lot of drawings in this notebook, have them do drawings as well, because drawing is another important learning tool. So we go on to our next drawing, and we're going to introduce them to the adult. We decide to start with the adult. That's the one they're most familiar with. They draw the other half, being able to see the other side of something and make it match is a visual skill and a drawing skill. And we thought it would be a good time to use that. And then we have them analyze that drawing. So how many wings does it have? What sections are those wings attached to, and blah, blah, blah. And so they answer a few questions at the bottom. Again, as Cassie noted, because there are questions, blanks here that they have to fill in, boom. At the bottom is that check mark. If you check it, it will go to activity number 2, which is this, right? Meet the adult. The labels, they show the parts, and then on the questions, those are the answers to those questions.
And to go back to where you left off, all of these are hyperlinks.
And it'll take you right back to that page. So then we go on, okay, you got the adult part. You've seen one of those. Let's go a little bit deeper into the life cycle stage. So we go through and introduce each step of that cycle. And the other cool thing, Cassie, at the bottom, if you want to go with that.
Larva, larva, pupa, pupa.
We also put in vocabulary when we introduce new vocabulary, and we tried to also make sure to include pronunciation of that word for everybody's benefit. And then now we're going to meet the other 3 life cycle stages. Again, I'm not going to read through this to you, but then we go and have them go a little bit further into the stages. So there's going to be eggs, so who's going to lay those eggs? Well, it's a female, and start building that knowledge. And again, the answers are at the end of the document, and you can link to them directly from the page. We then talk about these two, the larva and the pupa. And they have to list 2 ways that they're alike and that they're different. And there's another vocabulary alert at the bottom about the siphon, which is a critical anatomical structure. They have to know the siphon. So we will emphasize that several times throughout, but we introduce it here and have a vocabulary alert for it. And also the trumpet, the 2 at the top of the anterior end there of the pupa. Then we go on, and in the next thing, which is also very cool, Cassie.
So thinking if you were using this on a smartboard or for a student, these are movable. And so you can move these to the right location. And when you're done with them, you can move them back. But again, if you want to check and see what they look like for the answer, it would go here, so you can see where they should be put. And then to go back to where you left off.
So a little bit more mosquito science. We just go on and talk about a few other scenarios here. They list some ideas that they have about it, and how do you think they survive, kind of things. So again, not giving them every answer, having them think it through and work with it a little bit. We go on. This is still introducing mosquitoes. And so we thought another important thing to introduce here at the beginning is the mouth, the proboscis. And so again, we just guide them through that. What do you think a mosquito eats? Almost everybody we've ever done this with, of course, answers, well, they eat blood. Well, that is, they suck the blood and they do use it, but that's not their primary food source. And certainly the males do not use blood for any of those reasons. And so we introduce that and go through that. We also then at the bottom of some pages, we have these little fun facts. So you can meet tox. It's a mosquito genera. It has a very unusual diet. It actually eats the larvae of other species. So we give a little scenario there and then a link to an article. And then we ask them, how can this mosquito larvae be put to use to help reduce the number of cases of diseases that the Aedes aegypti transfers? So we made them think that through, and then there is an article they can go to read. We put the link right there. On the next page, then we thought, well, let's give them some more. And so we have a graphic artist that's working with us who drew this graphic for us to lay it all out. There are 6 needles involved, which is pretty interesting in and of itself. And then she drew the sequence of events and leading through the bite, from drilling and then holding the tissues apart and spitting the saliva in and sucking the blood. And we have another link to a video that you can watch. And we won't play it. It's a few minutes long. I'm sure several of you have already seen it. It's a PBS video on looking at a mosquito actually doing a bite. And then what was the most interesting thing you learned? We take you to the next page and take a little buzz break. Our first thing is we're going to break and we're going to talk about mosquito saliva. It's like, what? Why would we talk about mosquito saliva? Because the big hook here is those 6 needles. And the kids just went crazy in the classrooms that I taught this in, like, wait, stop, 6? So we thought, let's take a closer look at that. It's so engaging and so interesting. And so we've laid it out earlier, and now we're just going to talk about that and talk about the saliva that comes out of that needle. And that one substance, we say it's going to numb the area, so you don't necessarily feel the bite as much as you might otherwise. And she can get in there and she can get to your blood. And the other one keeps your blood flowing, so she can keep sucking that blood out of there. It's not going to clot and prevent her from extracting that blood. But we also, and here's where we first kind of introduced this idea. We mentioned at the beginning, they're deadly organisms. Mosquitoes are highly deadly, but we wanted to make sure that you understood it's the saliva because it contains pathogens, and we define those are viruses and parasites that cause these diseases, and that we want to make she doesn't get the disease, but then she can pass those on. And so that's the connection. And we put it here in this little buzz break, and just to introduce that idea. And so to develop that a little bit further and to play with that idea a little bit more, we put in here references to these resources.
And the first one I'd like to show you is the mosquito tellers. And there are actually 5 different foldable paper games that we've created. And then there's a blank one that you can create your own. But there's one on mosquito biology, disease prevention and protection, and then 3 on the mosquito-borne diseases. And those look like this. And the directions on the back tell you how to fold it. And it's a game that you fold and it's a very interactive game for kids. And we tried to make it so that you actually are familiar with the concepts and questions that the kids could ask them each other. And hopefully it's a more than one and done, because you can earn points, and if you collect the most points, then you could perhaps win that round. The second one, which I think is a fascinating resource, is called Beyond the Bite. And it talks about all the different diseases that mosquitoes are responsible for sharing. And just to give you an idea, you can download this yourself. We have it translated in Spanish and in Portuguese, but it's a file that becomes an interactive book, and you can flip the pages. And we just give you again some background about the diseases that mosquitoes transmit, how they do it, kind of a little bit of a history. So if you have kids that would like to go further, or yourself, if you'd like to share this with others, pathogens, vectors, tracking the vectors, those are all words that we use an awful lot. So it's good to know what and how they're related. I'm going to get to mosquito lingo are the terms that are in the book. And I think that's kind of just a great way to engage kids in learning the science talk. But here are the different diseases and pathogen vector, what their range are, symptoms, and then treatment. And if you're thinking, wow, that's pretty cool, we also have a little bit more information for you. So you can get as deep into this background that you'd like to for kids. And as you'll see, how we kind of put the whole story together as we go through this. So on the next page then, the Zika-zine, if you're not familiar with the Zika-zine, interactive cartoon that talks about Wanda. She's the star of the show. And she has friends, Maurice and Hester. But Wanda realizes that she's who do you think you are? She's pretty sure, but she has a baby book where she's looking back to see how she came from an egg to the larva to a pupa to the adult stage. And just kind of talking about the life. It's an interesting life cycle. But as you go through it, Maurice wants to be the first mosquito in space. But, does NASA really see mosquitoes from space? Not exactly, but they find the places that they live. So the moist areas where it's been raining, lots of precipitation, or if it's dry. It talks about how to use the Globe Observer tool in an interesting way through the cartoons. What's really interesting about the whole thing is that you can learn to draw Wanda yourself or participants. And then there's a blank storyboard where you can also share how, or the next phase of your story, or you could make your own Zika-zine, so to speak. We've identified a lot of books that are at different reading levels, but places for you to start. And in a WorldCat list, you put down your location and it finds libraries that are in your area. And so you can find the different books that we've identified if they're available. I'm in South Dakota, but it takes you to the book and then you could check the book out from your particular library if you'd like to. One that I don't think I mentioned earlier is mosquito habitats and hideouts. So you can play this game 3 different ways, but it goes through the icons that are used in the mosquito habitat mapper tool in a bingo board kind of way. We provide you with 40 different sheets and a call sheet, and you can play it in a couple of different scenarios, which we have directions for also.
And so after that little break and check out some of those resources, we come back. You watched the video on the proboscis, and so there's those more open-ended. So what did you wonder about that? And what this reminds me of what? And then we also, over the course of developing this, came up with a poem. So it's an original to this book. It's called Ode to the Proboscis. You can go to the next page and it's in just a single page format. And we won't read it. However,
we do have a recording.
We did record it. And so you can just play it too if you want to. But we don't really have to do that right now. But it's a poem that deals with the mouth. And she's got these 6 needles. Wait, 6 needles. Why does she need 6 needles? And it goes on to explain why she needs those 6 needles. And it concludes with, but how cool is a proboscis? It's pretty cool, you must admit. Mosquitoes are the only ones who simultaneously suck and spit, which is another thing that kids think is really cool because you could have them try it, which they can't do, but it's funny. So, and then at the end of all this, have them. And we wanted to get into some language arts stuff and bring in some stuff where they can do some creative things on their own. So have them create a poem, or a story or a song or a cartoon, and then they can share that with each other, or whatever, however you would want to do that. Then we move on to section 2, and this one's on finding mosquito habitats. So we describe by introduction what we mean by that, what serves as a habitat. They already have figured out from part 1, they lay their eggs in water. I got that connection to water. And now we're going to build off of that a little bit more to say, but what kind of water, and where's the water? And would you be surprised if there was water in that? And have you checked that for water? That kind of thing. And so there's the link to the resource that Cassie just talked about. But then we go on in the first part here, we have them. So where do you think she might lay eggs? And why do you think she might choose that place? Answers are at the back of the book by the link at the bottom. But then we had the graphic artist go ahead, and instead of going outside, we thought, well, what if you were using this in the winter time if you are outside the tropics, and or you just are using it to try to get them thinking about this, and you weren't ready quite to go outside anyway. So we had her create 3 different scenarios. I mean, they're just places that she just created. And we asked the kids to find water sources that they might look at to check for mosquito larvae in the water. And so here we have this one that has a playground and a pickup truck with a canoe on it with bags in the back and containers in the back, and there's planters there, and there's a tree maybe with a tree hole in it, and there's a hose sitting out there, and there's water in the road and that has puddled in the road. And so there's a lot of places. Obviously the lake in the background along the edges of that in particular would be a place that mosquitoes would probably find valuable for egg laying. So we have this one set up a little bit more of a kind of an urbanish area. We went and did the next one into more of a,
And you can check your
Oh.
answers if you are doing this as a small group activity or a large group presentation. You can immediately, after everybody's had a chance to take a look at the image, did you identify the flower pots, puddle in the road, the grill, and those things that Liz mentioned earlier. And again, to go back to where you left or where you started.
And so this place is just sort of like an outbuilding, maybe a small little cabinish kind of thing. And then find the places there, again, without redundantly repeating. You can look it over now. You should be able to if you're going to get your badge. You can look that over and go, oh, yeah, there, maybe there. I checked there. That looks like it might be okay. Oh, I didn't even think about tires. So we laid all those in this one, and then we went on to a third one, a little bit more of a rural setting, and talked about the places out there that you might find them. And again, you can look at that and pick out several, and hopefully your students would, or your whoever you're working with, be able to do that as well. Then we go to the next page. So how about in your own house? So we gave you some examples. We made some drawings for you, but what about your place? Why don't you go around your house, either in or outside your house, and find a couple that you think, make a drawing of them and tell us why you think that she would lay her eggs there. So now they're starting to investigate their local environment, which we want to build off of, and we see as a strength of this whole project is that they will be able to find mosquitoes and mosquito larvae in their neighborhoods for the most part. You will find them. It's in your local environment. And so we wanted to kind of start planting that seed. Oh, but you're going to be able to find them where you live. And then we put this missing larva mystery in there. What about your dog's dish? Why aren't you seeing those in your dog's dish? And they have to kind of come up with reasons why. Well, you change that water fairly regularly, of course, and you eliminated any possible eggs or larvae. So then we go on into the next. Now we're just asking them to reflect on it. I'm changing my mind about something. Now I understand why this, blah, blah, blah. I'm beginning to think that, blah, blah, blah. And so they just fill this out. There's no answer key to this page because there is no correct answer. This is letting them think it through. This is their experience. And so give them that freedom and have them write what they come up with, and they can share. It's valuable to share those things. And you can do that in small or large groups. We go on to section 3. This is observing. Now we're going to get a little bit more into it. And so we even start by saying, going from there could be a mosquito larvae in that water while you're looking at a picture to, oh my gosh, I'm looking at this water and I think those are mosquito larvae. That's a huge step for a mosquito researcher. But we're going to go kind of gently into this because field work does take practice and it does take some dedication, because you're going to have to get out there and do some pretty heavy duty observing. And not only just observing, but you got to have a sense of what you're looking for. So we tried to lay this out. We did a saved reminder. And then we also did this little reminder at the bottom. After you examine a water source, take a minute to decrease the mosquito population around your home by doing these. And there's CDC recommendations, the Centers for Disease Control. And so we talked to them about what you can do to maybe eliminate those mosquito larvae. You're not going to eliminate all mosquitoes in your neighborhood, but you can drop the number. So we put that in there before we get started too. Now we go into the fieldwork stuff, and they're going to have to get their location. We want them to get latitude and longitude. We want them to look at monthly high and low temperatures, because temperature is critical. It's critical. We talked about how all of our weather and temperatures and stuff have been our precipitation. We had an informal conversation as we were waiting for this to start. It's not only important to us, those things are important to mosquitoes. And so we want them to have a record of, get your high and low temperatures. Let's look at that. Get your precipitation levels for your area. Let's look at that. And then Cassie has made some links there to make that easier. There's lots of places online. She found and chose this one. So you want to run them through that real quick?
Oh, weather.gov.
Sure, just to give them an idea of what that.
For the US, type in your zip code. And if you head down to I put the directions, scroll down to daily climate and then daily for a month. And then this is my particular area, and daily for a month, and then just click on go. You get the max, min, and average for that so far. So my max temperature in August was 105 and my low was 55. So that would go in your data chart then.
And yeah, and like we mentioned, there are lots of those weather sites that you can go to. So this is just one suggestion, but certainly they can investigate that too and see what they come up with. Once you gather all that data, you go to the next page and have them enter that, and then they can look at that. And so now, looking at your high and low temperatures, when do so what does that make you think about? So we put the questions on the next page to go with that. And so would you expect to see mosquitoes in your area? Any months that you would not expect to see them? How many months out of the year do you expect to see them? And so we all, looking at where everybody's from, we are from a variety of latitudes and longitudes. Our answers are going to be totally different. I'm in Alaska, so my answers are definitely going to be different from Cassie's answers. So let them analyze their local environment. This is about their local environment. So let them get that data and go from there. Then once they have all that, then we go on. And to get started on your research, now that you've got all that and you have some experience looking for habitats, we are going to, I mean, this is just kind of an introduction again, and then we're going to have you go back outside and go do a check, this time with more specific direction. And so we have made a list. This is the instruction sheet. On the next page is the full sheet on which you will record the date that you go out. Have them go out a couple times, 2 or 3 times. The date you go out, the high and low temperature of that date. Was it raining that day? And did you see any mosquitoes, being adults, flying around? And so then as you go to the next page to start filling it out, you do that at the head of each of the 3 columns. But then we gave you some things to look for. Again, just getting them trained, getting them to think about these. So, and you're not going to find every single one of these in every single location. So, so did you find a flower pot? And did you check it? Did you see anything that looked like a mosquito larvae or larva or pupa? And then were there adults flying around indicating that they're looking too? And so you fill this out. And again, it's just practice, 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 and get them very comfortable with it. Then instead of going out and finding these places, we also threw in here Dr. Lowe's video that she put together about building a trap. So we said, well, now, and I had the kids that I worked with in 4th and 5th grade build a trap, and we put them outside. Great instructions in this video on how to do it. Written instructions follow on the next page, so you can go with those also. Have them build a trap and place it in the environment around their school, around the library, around your neighborhood. And we put little tags on it: do not disturb, this is a science experiment. And so we checked it. You check it every week or so. We went for several weeks checking it, and it was real interesting to see what happened over the course of several weeks in the late spring in Alaska. So we learned a lot, and they recorded that data on a data sheet, and just matches up with what they got out of their trap. Then we go on and we take another buzz break. Cassie, you want to do it?
We thought it'd be interesting to take a look at mosquitoes in history, and so this is an actual event that has happened. Group of travelers preparing for a trip to Panama, and they were reading about the Panama Canal in 1881, and so you get a little historical kind of a peek into history about how important mosquitoes actually have been, and in changing a lot of changing and starting a lot of wars. But a nice discussion. And again, we link to an answer sheet, so you have some ideas. Key concepts here are in italics, but things like the workers, did they bring malaria and yellow fever in with them? Is that what happened? And how did that, was it transmitted? We actually have about 5 more scenarios that will be in the facilitator's guide, but it kind of gives you a break to do a little bit more problem solving.
Cool. And the other cool thing about it too is once you kind of get into this, and we as a group with Dorian and Cassie and Rusty and myself have really gotten interested in the history. And if you've been with us on some of the other webinars that we have done that pull in some historical things about mosquitoes, we did the Philadelphia story, which is so fascinating, but the stories are so captivating that the kids kind of get into that, and the whole history of, and looking at this stuff on the Panama Canal, so interesting. So we threw another one of those in, and like Cassie said, there's other additional ones that you'll see in the facilitator's guide. And then we go into hunting mosquitoes, and so you can create GLOBE team, and we give you directions on how to do that. And now we're going to get into going into level 1 training. And so moving this along here really quickly,
everybody completes Larva Hunters 1, you'll get the badge. So stick with us. You're almost
there. Here we go, guys. We're going to do this. We're going to get this badge. So we set this up to follow that. There's a lot of kid-oriented things, and adults are into it too, about hunting for things, monster hunters and troll hunters and, all that stuff. We thought, oh, let's play off of that a little bit. So you're going to do this larva hunters training. So a personal message has just come in for you from the training director of the Mosquito Larva Hunters program. Read it carefully. And so, greetings. It is my honor to invite you to join our Mosquito Larva Hunters team. Mosquito larva hunters training prepares you for important work. You will gather data related to larva breeding sites and larvae identification, both of which are important in supporting the health and safety of your family and community. You will then share your data with a worldwide team of mosquito larva hunter members. Ask any badge carrying mosquito larva hunter about their training, and they'll tell you it was challenging, but it was worthwhile. Are you up for the challenge? The coveted mosquito larva hunter's badge will be awarded to you at the completion of your training. As training director for the program, I am counting on you. Your training begins now. Good luck. So they go to the next page and we start the training. We introduce them to these three genera, the Anopheles, the Aedes, and the Culex. These are chosen because not only are they in the app, but they were also chosen to be in the app because they are primary carriers of and transmitters of disease. So we go into the essential larva hunting skills. So you've got to be able to do visual analysis. You've got to examine those larvae. You have to have surveillance techniques to observe for their behaviors. You've got to have investigative techniques because you've got to uncover some facts. You have to have personal defense tactics because you better be protecting yourself out there. And you have to do removal of habitats. So we're going to ask you to empty those containers of standing water. And so you're going to build these skills. We're going to give you 7 clues, have you go through those. And then your task is to use those clues to determine if something is a mosquito larva or an imposter. So we set it up for you to go to the next page in which you still have you were going to say something, Cassie. Sorry, go ahead.
Before we go on, I would just like to point out that these larvae are hanging in the water in different directions. And that's important if you've scooped some water out and you're looking at what you have in your container. If you're looking at something that's horizontal to the surface, something that's just slightly off vertical, or something that's more off vertical.
And so here are your 7 clues. They lay their eggs and spend the first 3 stages of their life in water. So where are you going to look? Clue number 2, they're found in still or standing water, usually not flowing water. Why would they do that? Clue number 3, mosquito larvae must breathe. Almost all larvae breathe through a tube found on their tail end. But note that the Anopheles larvae do not have this tube. So what's its name? And so where are you going to find them? Clue number 4, mosquito larvae have no legs. Only adult mosquitoes have legs. So clue number 6, you will often find mosquito larvae resting at the water's surface. Some larvae, like Culex and Aedes, suspend their body from their siphon. On the other hand, Anopheles larvae lie with their bodies parallel to the surface. Clue number 6, the head of the mosquito larvae is rounded. It is not elongated. It is not square, nor is it triangular. The head is distinct from the thorax. There will be a constriction before you get to the thorax. And clue number 7, the thorax of a mosquito larva is generally wider than its head or abdomen. So the thorax is the wider of the 3 body segments. Okay, we're ready. Let's go.
Double check. We have a graphic as a reminder so that you know what those separate parts look like on the larvae. Are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Okay. So we've given you 5 images, and then we've listed the clue at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we just gave a brief summary of that clue. Clue number 1 is it is in the water. In the directions above, we tell you all of those samples were taken from a water source. I mean, we had no other way really to get that point across without taking up a whole nother page. So we just are telling you, we took those samples out of water. And then we have to go on. And in fact, up above, we say, I got to find it real quick. They're shown larger than actual size. They're facing the same direction. They were all found in standing water. No information was provided on where in the water each was found. So we don't know where in the water they were found, but it was still water, standing water. So you've got to decide, was it in the water? Was it in still water? Does it have a siphon? No legs. Rests at the surface. Has a rounded head. Has a wide thorax. So is it a mosquito or imposter? So
Take a moment.
yeah, let's go with the first one. Look at that first orangey looking guy. We know he was in the water and we know it was still water. We've checked the first two boxes. So you take it from there. Does he meet the requirements of being a mosquito larva? Hmm. Let's do one at a time. What do we think? Anybody? Is that a mosquito larva?
Throw your answer in the chat. 1, 2, 3, go. I gotta know.
Yeah. Look at all the
No,
nose
no.
coming in. Oh, you guys are good.
Definitely an imposter.
Oh, Shannon, you got it. Okay, let's go to the greenish fluorescent-y looking one. That's a weird looking thing. Let's see. We know 1 and 2, check. Go on across. What are we thinking? Is that a mosquito larva? This one's a little bit tough.
Double check. Ready? Catch your answer. 1, 2, 3. Drop it in the chat. All right. I can't see the siphon. Definitely nose. Doesn't have enough. What do you think?
Well, yeah.
Should we do
you're
one
not.
more? We'll do one more and then.
Well, you're not seeing it. I would agree. It's the siphon is not real obvious on that one. But let's go on. Maybe we need to think about that. Let's go on to the next one. So here's this guy. 1 and 2, check. Ooh, that's the big one. You got the big one, Joanna. Yeah, Sharon. Look at that. That little guy has legs. He's out of contention. You're out of there, number 3. We spotted you right off. Let's go to the next one. Just to keep the things moving. We're running out of time. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, those are some good observations. The head shape's kind of funky.
All right. Last one.
And then we'll look at the answer key here in just a second. So there's the last one. Ooh, laying there. 1 and 2, check.
They're all giving me the creeps. Yeah.
Joanna, you're going to be a great larva. Oh, that's funny. Giving me the creeps. We're getting some yeses on this one. Let's go to the answer key, Cass.
So you notice there's not a check mark here because we felt that would be, you needed to have an answer closely after you had done the activity. So we have the answers to the 7 clues earlier.
Yeah, because each clue had a question with it. And then here we go, the unveiling. Oh, I think we did pretty good. We did pretty good. The number two would kind of threw us off a little bit. And the expert on mosquito identification, Rusty Lowe, is now present with us. So she may want to jump in. But I mean, it could or could not have a siphon, right? Because Anopheles does not. So you can't just say, well, it doesn't have a siphon, so it can't be. Because it could be. It could be Anopheles. So everybody said, no, I don't think that's a mosquito because I don't see the siphon. Number two is not going to have the siphon. That's true, but it still has the other characteristics that we associate with that. The head, the wide thorax, the constriction between the head and thorax, the segmented body, the hairs, et cetera, et cetera. Number three, imposter. That was our easiest. Boom, we got that one. Number four down, also an imposter, having to do a lot with the shape of the head and the connection to the thorax and stuff. Those were biggies. And then the last one clicked all of them off. That was a perfect mosquito larva.
Yeah.
And then it goes on, and we are really going to dash because we realize it's getting late. Then you got this one. Yay, you did such a great job. Now get your toolkit ready because now we're going to check into finding some larvae and identifying them. So then you go on. We're just going to blast through these. Cassie to Larva Hunters Training 2 gives you more information. You're going to need your smartphone and da-da-da-da-da. And then we're going to go down. The coolest thing, again, we give more introduction, more things to think about, a little bit more on anatomy, because we get into some details, a little bit more details here that would take some time, which we don't have right now, sorry. But if you go down, you get to look at this again and you practice a little bit. Is this a mosquito larvae? Does it have a siphon? Does it have hair? Blah, blah, blah. Then you keep going. The real cool thing that we really like about this and we find so valuable about this is this will give you the image off of the app, off of the tool, the Globe Observer Mosquito Habitat Mapper tool. It will give you that image. And we wanted to build your confidence in using that. So we have it laid out for you very clearly. We have another picture of the mosquito that you're supposed to be keying out. We put examination notes. We put things in here that you wouldn't see when you look at the tool itself. The siphon is tube shaped. See it up there, and it branches off the tail end. And then we ask you some questions. Does your specimen siphon have pectin? We talk about the pectin. We magnify it so that you can see on that lower picture the pectin on the dorsal, what would look to be the dorsal side, the upper side, the left side of that siphon as we look at it. And so then you go on to the next step, examining the hairs. We go through every meticulous little step. We give you notes about it. We ask you questions about it. We give you magnified images of it so that you can really get the idea. And then we go down into answering the table that we had you do at the beginning, and then setting up for you to do some more work with this and setting up another larva and having you go through the steps and showing you magnified images and having you make those decisions about, is this or is this not a mosquito larva? So I know that was really fast, and this part may need another discussion at some other time, but you go through both of those and you end at the very bottom here with your badges.
And so you have all earned level 1 and a level 2 badge. When we show you the link to these materials, it's a graphic that you can copy and then you can paste it, or your students, and then here you can get your certificate. If you click on the link at the bottom, it'll take you to a generator. If you put in your name then, and then generate and download, it'll take this and then you print it out, and that you just print on it and you're good to go then. And kind of wrapping it all up, we ask you now, what did you learn about mosquitoes? And so there's a place for 10 things that you might have learned from them. And we know that there's always things that should go in, but ended up in the appendices. So we have the sections 1, 2, and 3. We show you how to create a GLOBE team, which is a really great tool, especially if you have a class or a group of people that you'd like to keep track of. And so when you download the tool, you put in your first and last name and an email address. They send you a password via your email, and you enter that one time, and then you're a GLOBE observer. And clicking this gear icon will take you to a place where you can then join a team, or you can create a team, or you can find a team if you're working with a library, a group of people. You can change your name. If you're a GLOBE observer, normally you have GEO in front of your random name, but you can change it to something cool like Mountain Wanderer if you want, or Mosquito Stream, or there's a couple of very interesting combinations, and you'll get a random number at the end of that. And that becomes your new name. So you can challenge people to join your team that way. There's an identification key that we've linked in here also for you. So if you'd like to follow through using the GLOBE Observer tool with an ID key, starting at the top, looking at the different features that have gone through with Larva Hunters 1 and 2, you'll find out which genus of mosquito you have. And Dr. Lowe does an amazing narration as she works through the key, talking about what you're looking at and what may or may not be found on different samples that you'll look through. One of the features that will help our scientists down the road are the clear pictures that you take. An inexpensive clip-on magnifier will take most of your iPhones or phones to a different level of magnification. And this just shows you how to put it on your phone and put it down into the water sample so you can get those great pictures. And then there's some pro tips for taking photographs. If we could get at least 2 photos of the larvae's full body, 2 of the tail end section, and then 2 photos of the head, that helps the AI that we're working with to really is a good training model then. And again, in the appendix, we have a storytelling with graphs activity where you can take a look at your data and some other data, and then just build a simple project for elementary kids to get started to graph out some data. But the whole point would be for you then we feel that the Mosquito Larva Hunter Guide is a foundational structure for making a science fair project or an entry into the GLOBE International Virtual Science Symposium. You've got the research, you've got kids doing the research, getting the data, looking at the data, you have photographs, and then you could put it into a format for a poster or for a research paper. That concludes our part of the presentation.
So, yep, that's it. So congratulations on getting your badge here. But the one thing that was our goal for the day is to make sure that you understand that there's a lot of stuff in that guide, and we tried to make it very user-friendly and applicable to lots of different situations, working with lots of different groups. And we hope you find it that way as well. We would appreciate any feedback from you. If you have anything that you would like to talk to us about or suggest as we move forward, we would love to chat with you about that. The other thing that I would like to take a minute to say too is to thank the people that were on our advisory committee, that they were asked to go through and review this stuff as we move through it. And as you can see, it's fairly long, but we got great feedback from them. And so to Mike and Juan and Inez, a very heartfelt thank you. We couldn't have done it without your input to make it as good as it is. So thank you very much. And thanks for those of you who came and went through it with us. Take the time to do it on your own, and hopefully you'll find it valuable and you'll put it to good use. We would appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm sharing the link if you'd like to download or save a copy of this resource for yourself, you certainly can. If you clicked on the link, it would say, do you want to copy it? And you would have to say yes. We'd like you to take a look at it. We have an email address in there. If you have any suggestions, comments, or anything regarding it, we would enjoy hearing from you. And to wrap our webinar up, on October 13th, we have Dr. Katie Bruna from the University of Iowa talking about the Urban Ecosystem Project, Mosquitoes and Me. It's a community-based sciencing project, and the bit.ly is right there to join that. If you look at the registration page, you'll have an opportunity to read all about her project. We'd like to see you also. So September and October are some educational resources to prime the pump to get you started on mosquitoes with projects. And we'll get back to our sciencing as soon as Dr. Lowe comes back from Brazil. So thank you all very much.
I will just, because Sharon had a question here. She said she's just curious how long we'd been working on this project. Oh, let's see. Between this notebook and the facilitator's guide that goes along with it, we started this a couple years ago, and we've all been doing other things along the way, certainly, but it's been in the works. It's been in the works for a couple years. But thanks for all the compliments, and thank you guys for taking the time to join us.
I put a link to the Google Slides in the chat. If you're interested, we'd be happy to hear your comments on it. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody, and thank you for attending. We appreciate it. And nice to see you, Dr. Lowe.
Take care, everyone. Nice to have people from all over the world.